Okay. Did you know the word flower power is the term that people use to promote world peace and love, to turn others against the idea of war, that it originated from the hippies? Hippies are a subculture who reject the social norm and promote ideas of love and peace for all mankind. To truly understand the hippie subculture, we will look at when it began and why, their political views or ideology, and their style choices and hobbies. The hippie movement began in the 60s, around the time the Vietnam War started. Hippies were a part of the anti-war movement that began as they promoted peace and did not approve of troops being sent over to fight the war. According to the article, Vietnam War protests, as many as 40,000 young men were called into service each month, adding fuel to the fire of the anti-war movement. As the amount of troops being sent over increased, the hippie subculture grew as well to include hundreds and thousands of more young Americans. Anti-war sentiment is still seen today by hippies, as they do not approve of war in Iraq and other countries as our troops fight those. Hippies rebel against war today also, as instead of violence, by spreading love and peace. Public gatherings, park music festivals, sometimes protests, often simply are excuses for celebrations of life, are important to the hippie lifestyle and movement that we still see today. The hippie subculture is more than just a movement, it is also a way of life and has its own ideology and political views today. Hippies have their own set of beliefs and ideas about the government, as they are typically referred to as pacifists and would say, make love, not war. Hippies don't believe in a big government, as they think that all the government does is start conflicts and wars. According to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, a flower child, which is sometimes a hippie is referred to as, is a hippie who advocates love, beauty, and peace. Hippies also sometimes prefer to be called freaks or love children. And the famous guitarist Jimi Hendrix, a hippie himself that represented transcendentalism, said, "When the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will know peace," which expresses that during that time and still today, famous musicians wanted peace and not war. According to the book American Hippies by Professor William Roberbaugh, hippies stood out for their lack of distinct political ideology. Hippie politics is more of politics of no politics. Hippies think that you should do your own thing, and whatever you feel like doing, you should do. This subculture enjoys living a life of deviance and being on the outside of the mainstream, as hippies are anything but conservative and society rejects them for that. Although hippies are a bold, outspoken subculture with different beliefs than those in the mainstream, they also have some very interesting hobbies and interests and taste in clothes. The style and interests of hippies are a particular one that sets them apart from the crowd. Hippies often grow their hair long, walk barefoot, and wear old, colorful clothes. Patchwork skirts and coats, long, flowing flounce skirts, and psychedelic patterns and prints are part of the fashion that is associated with hippies, according to the Thames and Hudson Dictionary of Fashion and Fashion Insiders. Their style is considered relaxed, as it consists of very loose clothing with earthly tones, but can also have exotic patterns. Flare jeans, bell bottoms, and a lot of stuff I still mention we still see today that is most affiliated with the hippie style. Also, some side interests of the hippie subculture is that they use drugs to enhance their spirituality. The hippie counterculture, more than anything else, was about taking LSD, seeking spiritual perfection through drugs, but particularly through psychedelic drugs, according to History.com. Hippies influenced the wider range of recreational drug use that we still see today. The recreational use of hallucinogenic drugs, particularly marijuana and LSD, and so-called head trips, justifying the practice of a way of expanding the consciousness, according to Britannica. Basically, hippie used the idea of spirituality to get high or trip. In today's modern world, the hippie style ideas have expanded further and changed. The hippie subculture today is just as it was back in the 60s, but just more spread out. The style and interests of hippies are a very particular one. And basically saying that their distinctive brand of rebellion, including their long hair and beards, colorful style, psychedelic drug use, and the love of rock and roll music and unconscious lifestyle, according to the article How the Vietnam War Empowered the Hippie Movement, just shows that it's a life choice in society nowadays, more so than it was a movement. The hippie subculture rejects the social norm and promotes peace and love. And here are some pictures of hippies and their style choices.